Hey, this is Blind Fox. Welcome at my gameplay through. Please support the channel, please subscribe, and please go and donate on patreon.com. So we've got some muzzleloaders over there that we're going to work on. This stage of the game it's not very fast, so we're doing Gunsmith Simulator. We are creeping up to the next stage. There's still free stuff we need to do. So we've got Sandmaster that we still have to do, Brushmaster, and then mastering the lathe. Handy tools. So, 3 more things to do. And we've got some more things to master here as well. We only have these guns, these 3 guns at mastery level. Adept is this lot over here. Depending on how far, we might even complete the Browm Bess today. I think we've got Browm Bess there in as well, one of the guns we have. And all of the rest are being worked on to a greater and lesser extent. We have done all the guns in the game. There isn't new guns yet. So let's just have a little look-see and see if there's anything that is flintlocky or a muzzleloadery thing. No, there is not. So let's start with this one. So we've got Browm Bess. And I'm currently actually reading the Sharpe series. For those of you who don't know about that, I can't remember who's the writer, but plays off in the Napoleonic War era, before that, well, more or less in that era. In other words, in the era of Browm Bess. And I do like the series, but what annoys me most about the series is the description of how they load rifles. There is actually one part where they describe the loading accurately, as in tearing open the cartridge, not putting off the bullet, tearing open the cartridge, pouring in some powder into the pan. As I can figure from stuff I've read, you pour the powder into the pan first, as in the where's my mouse? As in the area over here that we just removed. And sorry, the cat is being annoying. So as you should load it, as you should load it, you bite open the cartridge, pour powder in the pan, then you pour powder in the muzzle, and depend on what type of cartridge you have, you either sometimes remove some cartridges are loaded with the bullets still. You just bite open the thread in front of the bullet and then ram the cartridge or the paper cartridge down with the bullet. There is, or before, sorry, the cat is being annoying. So you bite, okay, let me start again. You bite open the cartridge, you pour the powder into the pan, and all this is done with the gun on half cock. Then you put the gun down, remove your ramrod, pour the powder into the barrel, bite the bullet open. You do not bite the bullet off, you just remove the string in front of the bullet. Squeeze the bullet into the onto the powder, or depending on your cartridge, there's also one where you bite the bullet open but then load the whole cartridge, every paper and all, before you load the, together with the bullet, and then you ram it and then you shoot. And not as Sharpe and them says, you bite off the bullet, then you then you load the rifle, then you spit the bullet onto or into the muzzle. Okay, that is a bit dodgy in effect, since your mouth is going to be quite close to the barrel and your face is going to be over the barrel, and if there's any whatsoever little spark or anything left in the barrel, the powder might just decide to go off, leaving you with no face, hence no use to the army in future, and most likely dead. Another problem is with the description of so that is a bit dodgy, and there, as far as I know, there is not a lot of no evidence that it have been done that way in the actual army. It's just a fictional thing of spitting the bullet down the rifle. And the thing about that, your spit will help the bullet get into the rifle more easily. Remember, you are biting open cartridges and saltpeter dries your saliva, so you're not going to have a lot of spit left. So now we come to some of the accuracy stuff. Yes, the rifle is more accurate than a musket, but they are developed for two totally different things. Muskets are basically developed to fire. This is a thing about your military tactics developed from big tertius, which was big blocks of people that fought in blocks with fights, and then your at that stage mass loss. And you normally had a 2-to-1 ratio, I think 2 blocks of fights to 1 block of muskets, because your fights had to protect your muskets from the cavalry. So you had 2 blocks of fights on the side and normally your block of muskets in between. And that could be a lot of blocks of people moving about, making it very complicated, and I'm not a tactician. So this is basically the Spanish developed that to a nice lovely art, and then different nations developed their own style of fighting. The English had their lines by this time of this rifle, basically they fought in line. The French, at least in the Napoleonic era, fought in column, big scary columns that basically, if they faced that's why they did a bit badly sometimes against the British, because they fought in column, the British fought in line. The British, although their line was smaller, or basically in 2 or 3 lines, it looks thin, but they had much more people that could fire back, where if you fight in column, only the forward people and maybe some people on the sides could fire. So you had much less people that could actually pour fire into or fire at the enemy. The advantage of the column is if you manage to break through the drum fire, you can basically overwhelm a line, because you can punch through it and then you can curve around it at the back. But just getting through the line, that's the problem. and it worked for them quite. It works well, the column, if you are fighting against people that are not trained to fire around 3 volleys a minute, which take a bit of practice. And the British actually did practice. They actually, I think, was some of the people that had the first dentistry, or a lot of the I think armies did have dentistry in their army. I know the British had it. I'm not sure exactly when they got it, but they needed it for. You have to have soldiers with good teeth, as much as possible, because you have to bite open your cartridge. When they switched over to breech loading weapons, you didn't really need soldiers with that good teeth anymore, because they didn't really use it. It was not a battlefield, what shall you call it, a necessity. It was nice to have, you can eat fine, but it wasn't a way to get your musket or your rifle working. Or that stage it was rifles. So the moment you moved from muzzle loader to breech loader, you lost the necessity of actually having good dental, or good teeth at least. And so I'm not sure when the dentist disappeared, but I know that in the First World War there was either no dental corps, or as far as I can figure, there wasn't any dental corps. Stuff that I've heard. In fact, they got civilian they had the medical corps, but not a dedicated dental corps. And they actually, due to all of the disfigurements that happened, they actually got some dentists that went to experiment on surgery for facial plastic surgery, and the other way around. And then I can't remember the names, but there were some French people and some British doctors. They all came together and formed the whole new field of plastic surgery. Very interesting stuff. Go and look for it on YouTube. I think the guy that did the... So you are here, then you prime your weapon. You bite open your cartridge, you prime your weapon, then you close it. Then you pour in your powder. You bite open your the ball part of the cartridge, and then either ram the paper in with the ball or just the ball, depending if the ball is leather wrapped or not. There was different cartridges, different makes. And then you just pull this back, because if this thing is at half, let's just do it. It doesn't want to do it now. This thing is at half cock, you can't fire the weapon. Let's just do that. See, where's free? There we go, free practice. If it's there, it doesn't matter. You cannot. It doesn't mean that the thing can't fire now. It's just it can't be fired by the trigger. If there is any spark in here, if you poured your powder in, doesn't matter if you still, because in the books they pour in the powder, they keep a little bit back in the cartridge, which is a bit, because some, as I say, some cartridges you use the cartridge paper in your loading process. So let's say you prime this thing with powder, there can still be a spark in here somewhere, and you just could sort of have that nice few seconds, and then the moment you spit in your ball, the whole thing goes off in your face, which is really stupid. Anyway, so then you ram your stuff. You do not want your face over the barrel. If you load for most modern loading purposes, you never you put your gun on half cock while you prime it, as you do normally, but you do not load your, either if you have a pan, you do not load your pan, or you do not load your caplock. And if you do have a caplock, normally they, I think the British um, did load the oh, do I need to actually fire him? Ah, there we go. Come on, we want to leave. Oh good, we've got mastery. Nice. Now here we've got Caplock. Now there was Browm Bess converted to Caplocks. I think some of them might have been. I know the Baker rifle was in the 1830s. Some of them was converted to Caplocks. But you can see it's an easy thing to convert these rifles to Caplocks, because all you need basically to do is you screw up this lock, pull it out, remove this part, and the barrel, essentially you remove your frizzen and your frizzen pan, and it's a relatively, not say easy conversion, but you can get a conversion kit and the armory can do it for you. You grind the, let's say, oh no wait, this is not the Caplock, this is also the flintlock because there was a frizzen. But anyway, it's easier to do the conversions. And with the Browm Bess and those, it's actually much easier. You just remove the one lock and add the new lock. They did the same thing when they converted from matchlock to flintlocks. You remove the one lock mechanism and just add the other one. Because if you grind the way this, okay, this is the Caplock part, but if you have the frizzen pan and you just grind it away, add the Caplock, there you've got your pistol. This one almost looked like it is, this might have been a frizzen pan type thing. Might not be, but yeah, this is a Caplock. I was just fooled by the shape, the frizzen pan shape on the rifle, or on the barrel there, but it's relatively easy to do. And with minor updates, the Browm Bess, the one we did before, was in service for I think around 100 years. I think it's still the rifle that is the longest serving rifle in the British Army. I do not know other countries, but I do like the wear on some of these pieces. You can see it's either machine marks or wear marks. But coming back to the spitting the bullet thing, it is a fictional thing. It sounds very cool, but it is sadly not historically accurate. Because it's really not less accurate. Even if you bite off the ball, now most of the cartridges, there was different ones was made. If you start, you roll the paper and then you around a dowel and then you insert the ball at the front. Then you tie a string between the ball and the dowel to sort of hinge it up, and then you tie a string in front of the ball. Sometimes they tie the string in front of the ball first and then put the string at the back of the ball, but what you end up with is a ball with a string in front and a string at the back of it. Then you remove the dowel, pop in the amount of powder in your cartridge, then either tie a string at the back of it to close it off, or just fold it over. There's different manufacturers and different types of cartridges at different times. And later with the Enfield cartridges, that actually had a little bit of a problem. Some of the rifles they did load as we do in game with powder horn and stacking balls, sort of liver wrapped balls more or less, because it's a bit more accurate in those. That powder was much finer, so if you want to do a very accurate rifle shot, you do it that way. It's more the burn rate of the powder that it burns more uniformly. Your cartridges has got much coarser grain powder, and it's not that the musket, people say that the musket is accurate not over 100 yards, but they are not used in the same way as we use rifles today. You are shooting at a line, and if you miss one soldier, you are going to hit the guy next to him. You just need to not shoot, and they did aim, you just need to shoot at the correct height, not above them, not in front of them, and that takes practice. In fact, it is a common thing that if you don't practice, you will shoot low. If you are standing, if you are lying, you will shoot high. And I think I've mentioned this before on the channel, when they had the British adopted the Martini Henry. It was tested as a very accurate rifle, but in the field there was a bit of a problem because suddenly it wasn't that accurate. People started shooting low, and somewhere along the line they discovered that where some people did the amount of practice they did with the rifles wasn't enough for what you need to do with the accuracy of the Martini Henry at the time. So, being the British, they were either kneeling or standing up shooting, they were shooting low. So with practice, they fixed the problem. But in came the Zulus and the Matabele's. They captured the guns in South Africa. And being that they could not walk up to a store and buy ammunition, the British isn't going to sell ammunition to their enemies. They couldn't practice as much, and there is accounts, especially in the Matabele Wars, because that is when they captured a lot, or the Matabele Wars in Zimbabwe, because that is where they captured a lot, or after they captured a lot of Martinis. The Zulu Wars in South Africa, if you have ever seen the movie Zulu, it is a bit inaccurate because they did not capture Martini Henrys at Isandlwana. They most likely captured what was before it? Was it the Sharpe's rifle? Anyway, the one that the first, I think it was the Sharpe's. They basically captured them. They didn't capture Martini Henrys, and it was, they had an interview with one of the survivors of Rorke's Drift on the Zulu side in the 1920s. And the guy actually told them that the most of them, because then you place your cap and you pull it back further and you fire. You also load the thing from the front. But anyway, so the guys that attacked Rorke's Drift wasn't the same guys in any way that attacked Isandlwana. These was the guys that wasn't in the attacking party the previous day. They were the sort of the older guys and guys that didn't really yet prove themselves good enough to be in the horns and the front head of the impi. They were sort of the tail end of the buffalo. So they were not the best. Let's do that one. Warriors in the Zulu army. And besides from attacking attacking without orders and such, we'll not get into that. They didn't have new breech loading rifles. I think it was the Sharpe's rifle, if I'm not mistaken. I get confused with that one. Or is the American one the Sharpe's? It also have a S in the name. I cannot remember the English one. But it is the one that they used before the Martini Henry. I'm not going to look it up now, but in any case. So not even the gun, there wasn't that much Martini Henrys around in that part of the army anyway. But anyway, so the guys attacking did not have the Martini Henry. So those shots you see from way uphill was never possible. Anyway, they talked to the guy in the 1920s, and he said one of the greatest frustrations to the Zulus was they had these guns that they got over the years. They didn't have a lot. I mean, they don't have a lot of firepower. They don't have a lot of black powder to practice with, and their range was so bad. The Martini Henry could literally kill them from a distance. They couldn't reach the rifles they had, just didn't have the range, and the front loaders they had just didn't have the range of the Martini Henry. And they were not shooting as the Napoleonic British was, or the Napoleonic soldiers was, either at line of battle or at columns in battle. So it wasn't the battle type that the muskets were made for, that these guys used them in. So they were shooting at totally different ranges, totally inaccurate way of using the rifles. Why can't let me just pick this up? That's what I'm actually trying to do, is picking it up. And anyway, so musket isn't, the range is a bit shorter than a rifle's, yes, but it wasn't made to shoot at individual targets. It is made to shoot at group targets. So the guys couldn't shoot the guys at Rorke's Drift with the guns very well. So they had to basically rush and overwhelm them. Besides for the guys at Rorke's Drift being in a fortified position. And if the Zulus actually listened to the king and knew better, they would not have attacked Rorke's Drift at all. Because it was basically was going to lose. Now skip a few years, I think it was 1898ish, over in southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. There was a war between the British and the Matabele, and the Matabele had Martini Henrys. Now the British by that stage did have the Lee Enfield or the Lee Enfields and the Lee Metfords. They're sort of on the switch line between the two. Lee Enfields came in 1885, 86, around there. Sorry, 1896, 1895, around there. But there was reports of the Matabeles shooting high, and in other skirmishes that was also a problem. And when you look at the characteristics of the thing, it makes sense. Because the Martini Henry, if you stand up and shoot, and you haven't practiced, you shoot low. But if you lie down and shoot, and you haven't practiced with the Martini Henry, I don't know if it's the same with all rifles, but especially the Martini Henry, it was a common thing that happened. Then you shoot high, and that sort of makes sense, because these weapons was at that stage still high status. It wasn't the Enfields or the Medfords, but it was still breech loaders, and it still had one hell of a range, although it is a single shot rifle. But these guys, again, couldn't go down to their local gun shop and couldn't get that amount of powder to practice. Yes, there was powder smuggled into them. Yes, there was ammunition smuggled into them. But not as much as you need to actually use the gun well. And counter to some rumors, the British really practiced with firearms. In fact, they got such a shock against the Boers because basically the Boers might have been one of the only few nations that practiced more with firearms than the British did, and simply because they used their military firearms for hunting. The government basically said, you can get a gun for, we have a Mauser, nice new pattern Mauser, either the 1871 or one of the later models that was specifically ordered by the Transvaal and the Orange Free State for their armies from Mauser. So either of these guns you could get at a subsidized level for the Boers. So what are you going to do with them? You're going to hunt with them. You get cheap ammo. There's lots of wildlife about. Stuff that eat the grazing your cattle want. Free meat. Lions that lunch on your herds. Jackals and more. So you do get a lot of practice, and hunting is, you actually need finer marksmanship than if you want to shoot a springbok behind the bush 3 hills away. Then you need to use on the battle line as such. But the British did practice. Now there was a problem with the first Lee Enfields. I think I mentioned it before, there was a factory problem in the things. The front sight was mounted incorrectly. It was corrected after issue when they discovered the problem, but it sort of had this myth that the Lee Metford was more accurate than the Lee Enfield, which is not really true as such. It's just that a lot of the... So that basically sort of... And it was a strong myth because people did use the Lee Metford in the First World War for sniper rifles because they thought it was more accurate, and it statistically really wasn't. Oh damn, I forgot to do the quick assemble, quick disassemble again. Hate it when that happens. We could do it with this firearm. But even if you look at sniping ranges in the First World War and the Second World War, and you look at sniping ranges today, it differs. Your ranges was much shorter for average sniping ranges in Second World War and in First World War than you would say you'd typically have today for sniping ranges. Yes, the scopes wasn't as good and all that, but you didn't need it. Do like this one rifle actually. I think the now this one has an sort of this removable thing in the butt. I know the Baker rifle also had a storage place for the for extra I think there was extra storage for flint. There was extra storage for patches, for if you load your gun from your powder horn. But they did. Some people did tests with the accuracy of muskets and rifles, and they would. A lot of people say a musket isn't accurate over 100 yards, which a musket isn't a rifle, and it was never designed to shoot a target of one person. It is designed for using in the battle line, or the tactics is designed, adapted for. It is a question of, is the tactics developed for the weapon or the weapon for the tactics? It's basically a little combination of both, but it's just the evolution of military tactics. You do not get up one day and you have new military tactics. I mean, in the First World War, the trenches wasn't the... They didn't start out, we are going to have these massive freaking trenches and everybody, we're going to have artillery duels. It just sort of happened. I mean, the British was planning basically another war as they had in the first and the first and second World War, more or less. The second one was a very mobile war. Both the sides had mainly either cavalry or mounted dragoons, or the bourgeois mounted. So you have, the British had infantry as well, but the Boers was mostly fighting as mounted dragoons. I mean, you ride to battle, you get down from your horse, you go and shoot at the enemy, you get back on your horse and ride, depending if you lose or if you win, how far and how fast you ride. Now, in the war, the British did use the railroad. So, the British war was sort of main supply route was the railroad. There isn't a lot of railroad in South Africa, basically one big main line. Not as well supplied, well supplied as Europe. So it was it was a mobile war. There was sieges, yes, a few great sieges, but the big battles was mobile battles. And the sieges basically wasted the Boers' time. I think they might have done. I don't think they would have won, but the war might have gone on longer if they didn't do the sieges, because sieges at this time just sort of kept your people concentrated, giving a time for the greatest killer in war at that time to work, and that is fevers, illness, sickness, cholera, typhoid, and so forth. I mean, the biggest killer in war wasn't really your firearms. It was disease, disease and hunger. And then if you have the very unluckiness of being wounded, the actual amputation might kill you more swiftly than your wound would. There was no antibiotics, there wasn't really. That was a thing that came later. But anyway, the Boer War was very mobile. In come the First World War, it started mobile, and on the Eastern Front it was a much more mobile war. But due to the development of artillery, and the accuracy of artillery, I mean, artillery went from almost line of sight weapons to basically the range and the caliber of the things increased very fast. Very quickly, increased a lot very fast. or very, yeah. So it is, and having military tactics keeping up with a situation that you have no idea of how to do. Not every general can do it. There's no, because you do not know how to react. You do not know how to get your man past the artillery. Second World War, troops was more mobile. It didn't involve in a trench war. Basically because they had time to study the First World War to figure out how do you break the stalemate of trenches. Trenches is basically a failure in war, because it is it's the failure of one side to attack the other side through defenses that can be moved. You can't defend it forever and you can't attack it. It's just stalemate. And when you are in them, you can't really get out of them. If the tank wasn't developed, the First World War could have lasted even longer, because they didn't have a way to break the trenches. And that was just because the artillery was too strong. I think I could have done a quicker disassemble here. I really should remember to look at that. I forget. So rifles take much longer to load than muskets does. What is this? Ah, Derringer. I think, yeah. And if they wanted to load quick, you just leave out the patch in your ball. You can load your balls without the patches if you have the right ammunition. And when you were in the battle line, you didn't. The guys that used the rifles was the skirmishers, as in the light companies. They were shooting at individual targets in front of your firing line. Their main job wasn't standing in the firing line shooting at the rest of the firing line. Their job was shooting at the individual skirmishers of the other side, keeping them from shooting your people. In a pinch they could stand in the fire line, and they normally did in battle, but it wasn't really their job. I think muskets was around, they started shooting at around 300 yards, and they wouldn't have started shooting at that range if your musket wasn't effective. But you have a low rate of accuracy. But remember, these guys are, I have quick disassemble. So even if you've got a 9, a 3, a 6, and 9% accuracy at 300 yards, these guys are walking towards you. They are not running like craziness. They're not riding. If they're not cavalry, they're not riding horses toward you. So you can chew their line up quite nicely. And the closer they come, the more accurate your fire becomes. And this more. Okay, their fire also become more accurate, but if you can fire faster, you can thin them down even more. And then if you are the defending side, you just stand there and shoot at the other guys, more or less. You go forward and back, but you don't have to move around your fallen comrades. If you're the attacking side, you are going to have to stumble across them. Not fun. So coming back to the Sharpe books, I really like the Sharpe books. It does explain some battle tactics because the battles aren't historically correct because they have to put Sharpe in there somewhere. But just the some of the techniques they use, really you could have left out the freaking biting the bullet thing. The books would still be cool even if they load the muskets or the rifles conventionally. I do not have that. Hey, I think... What did I miss? What am I missing? I'm not doing something again. Oh, there we go. That's what I'm missing. I mean, technically, if you look about officers, Sharpe is never a good officer because he always wants to be in the firing line, and that's not what an officer does. Officers are not supposed to stand in the firing line. They're supposed to move the men around where they need to be, and the men are supposed to fire. Their job isn't firing. So if you look at him as an example of a proper officer, he's not, and it's not just because he's a gentleman. It's because a proper officer doesn't need to be in the line. He has to sort of look at this company, where his company is in relation to the enemy, where he's ordered to be, and if something went wrong, he has to have enough scope and attention to move his men to where they need to be, not focusing on shooting the enemy with his rifle, no matter how good a shot he is. You can see here you've got your nipple there, and it does actually look like this was a prison pan because of this scoop out bit. Almost look as if this could have been a flintlock because it looks like a vestige of a prison pan type arrangement. I think it was in the I can't remember, the first few books they described the duties of an officer after he becomes an officer. And he just wanted to fire at the enemy, and that just wasn't his job. So I understand why some of the officers was annoyed with him, because okay, yes, he came from the ranks, yes, he might have been familiar with, but he just didn't do his the job he's actually supposed to be doing. It wasn't that officers never fight or fought. It was just, it wasn't their job to do it. So if you are a British officer and you actually fought with your sword, because that's basically what they carried, you was just not doing your job properly. So I think this might be the end for today. We've created some lovely flintlocks, muzzleloaders, caplocks. I have forgot to do some of the quick assembly stuff, and quick disassembly stuff, sorry. It's just I forget to read the stuff. I can't really read the stuff on screen. We did get the Browm Bess into mastery, so we do have the Mequelet, which I did do, and I forgot I could do quick assembly and disassembly. Now we have Browm Bess there. Derringer is almost there, 1 away. This one is 4 away. Here we've got the Kuzanse is 2 away from mastery, and then the others we have to do. Let's just pop in here a bit. Do we want to do something else? I don't think so. Nah, not sure exactly what we are going to do next time. Maybe some handguns. There is 4 handguns for us. I think we'll do handguns next time. Let's just acquire them for next week. No, I don't want that one yet, no. Because this one is also... I might just do them anyway, because we have them. We'll just see what pops up. Those two we do have fully mastered, but we can do it because we've got quick assemble, disassemble. So we'll do the 2 Colts, 1 revolver, and 1 the excellent product of Mr. Browning, the guru of all modern pistols. So there we go, we've got our 4 guns for next week, or our 4 starting guns at least. We've got ourselves a Colt Modern 1911. I think this is the longest serving pistol in the American military, I think it served for around 60 years or something, some ludicrous number. It could be even more. I'm not sure if it is longer, but this is one of the longest serving pistols in the American one. You've got the VIS, which is Polish. We've got the Luger, very much German. It's a shame they do not have the Walters in here, the PPK or the PK. And we have the Colt Peacemaker. So we are doing some 2 Americans, 1 Polish and a German next week. So and we are slowly creeping up to level 29. So thanks for watching. Please support the channel, please subscribe, please go and donate on patreon.com. And see you at my next gameplay through. And if you are listening to all my crap till the end, thank you. I hope I'm talking some sense. Sorry I get confused sometimes if I speak about stuff, because I do not use a script. I can't read the screen, so I hardly can read the script anyway, so yeah. Have fun. So thanks for watching. Please support the channel, please subscribe, please go and donate on patreon.com, and see you at my next gameplay through.